The chamber of the Galactic Council had not known silence like this in 400 years. Not since the Dreth extinction. Not since the void collapse of Sector 9. But here, now, in the grand rotunda of Aurelius Station, a structure larger than most moons, carved from the bones of a dead star, 500 alien representatives sat completely, utterly still. On the central projection screen floated a single image. A fleet. Not just any fleet. Their fleet. The combined armada of 23 sovereign civilizations, representing the military might of half the known galaxy, 6,000 warships strong, assembled to deliver what the Council had called a corrective measure. It was gone. Every last vessel. In 11 minutes and 42 seconds. High Counselor Zyrex Thorn rose slowly from his seat at the center of the crescent-shaped dais. His pale blue skin had gone nearly white. His 4 elongated fingers gripped the edge of the obsidian table as though the galaxy itself might tilt beneath him. He had ruled the Galactic Council for 63 standard years. He had presided over border disputes, species extinctions, supernova evacuations, and 3 separate wars. He had never, not once, felt afraid. Until now. "Play it again," he said quietly. The holographic feed rewound. The 6,000 ships appeared again, positioned in a perfect blockade formation around the small blue-green world third from its yellow star. A world the Council had, until recently, considered a footnote. A newly contacted species, barely a century into space travel, still squabbling among themselves, still burning fossil fuels on some of their continents. Primitive, the Council had called them. Manageable. The corrective measure had seemed straightforward. Humanity had refused to pay the galactic tariff, a standard levy imposed on all new spacefaring civilizations for protection and infrastructure access. When the humans sent back their response, it had been 4 words. "We don't pay tributes." The Council had laughed. Then, after the second refusal, they had dispatched the fleet. The footage resumed. The armada moved into position. Communication was attempted, humanity's last chance to comply. There was a pause of exactly 30 seconds. Then the stars moved. That was the only way to describe it. The stars moved, or rather, something moved between them. Shapes too large to be ships. Too fast to be natural. They came from every angle simultaneously, not from any single direction, not from any fleet formation the Council's tacticians recognized. They came from behind the armada. From within it. From angles that should have been impossible given the known physics of faster-than-light travel. In 11 minutes and 42 seconds, 6,000 ships were either destroyed, disabled, or simply gone, vanished without a trace, as though they had never existed. Not one human vessel had been observed. Zyrex Thorn watched the silence on every alien face in the chamber and understood, in his marrow, that the galaxy had just changed forever. 48 hours later, he sat across a table from the man responsible. Admiral Ethan Cross did not look like what Zyrex had expected. He was shorter than average by human standards, with gray at his temples, a jaw that hadn't seen a razor in 3 days, and eyes the color of deep ocean water, calm in a way that Zyrex found profoundly unsettling. He wore a simple dark uniform with no decorative insignia beyond a small silver pin on his collar. He arrived alone. No security. No delegation. No weapons that Zyrex's scanners could detect. He sat down, accepted a glass of water from the station's automated service, and folded his hands on the table. "High Counselor," he said. His voice was unhurried. Almost pleasant. Zyrex studied him for a long moment. "You destroyed 6,000 ships." "We disabled most of them," Cross said. "The crews are alive and being held in lunar orbit. We'll return them when this conversation concludes satisfactorily." He paused. "We only destroyed the ones that fired first." Zyrex's jaw tightened. That was the entirety of the Council's Southern Enforcement Armada. "I know." Cross took a sip of water. We've been watching your enforcement armadas for about 40 years. We've also been watching what happens to civilizations that can't pay your tariff. He set the glass down gently. The Veth Collective. The Sori Protectorates. The Halcyon Moons. They complied, didn't they? They paid. And then they spent the next century as economic vassals, stripped of resource rights, denied representation, gradually absorbed. He tilted his head slightly. We read the history, counselor. We always read the history. The chamber felt very cold. You prepared for this, Zyrex said slowly. It was not a question. For about 30 years, yes. Cross leaned back in his chair. Once we made first contact with the Dreth refugees and heard what the council had done to their homeworld, we started planning. We've been quietly building, quietly testing, quietly waiting. A thin smile. Humans are annoyingly patient when the stakes are high enough. Zyrex stared at him. In 63 years of governance, he had negotiated with warlords, despots, and hive minds that thought in geological time. He had never felt quite so thoroughly outmaneuvered. What do you want? He asked. A few things, Cross said. He produced a single data chip and slid it across the table. First, the tariff system ends. Not reformed. Ended. Every civilization currently under economic enforcement gets full resource rights restored within 2 standard years. He tapped the chip. Second, the Council's membership structure gets restructured. No single species holds veto power. Voting representation scales with population and contribution, not political seniority. He paused. Third, the Dreth homeworld gets returned. We've already identified a viable resettlement plan. The Council's mining operations there cease within 6 months. Zyrex looked at the chip. Then at the man. And if we refuse? Cross didn't blink. Then we demonstrate what we used against your fleet. Publicly. To every civilization in the galaxy. He said it without heat, without dramatics, the way someone states the temperature outside. We have no interest in ruling the Council, Counselor. We have no interest in conquest. But we are not going to let the most powerful governing body in the known galaxy continue operating as a protection racket. He stood, buttoning his jacket. We didn't build what we built to use it. We built it so you'd never make us. He picked up his glass, finished the water, and set it back down with a soft click. Take a week, he said. Talk to your member states. You'll find that most of them are considerably less opposed to these terms than you are. He nodded once in a respectful, unhurried gesture. I'll show myself out. He did. Zyrex sat in the chamber for a long time after the human left, listening to the hum of the station around him and the murmur of 500 alien voices slowly, carefully beginning to recalibrate their understanding of the universe. The data chip sat on the table between his fingers. He turned it over once. Twice. 63 years. He had built his career on the fundamental assumption that power flowed in one direction, from the established to the new, from the organized to the primitive, from the ancient to the young. It was the bedrock of galactic politics, the law beneath all other laws. The chip felt impossibly light. He thought about what Cross had said. We built it so you'd never make us use it. He thought about 30 years of quiet human preparation, of a species that had looked at the galaxy's power structure and decided, with characteristic stubbornness, that they would simply refuse to participate in it on anyone else's terms. He thought about the footage. 11 minutes and 42 seconds. Slowly, Zyrex Thorn reached for the chip. He pressed it into the reader on the table. The data bloomed open across his screen, detailed, organized, meticulously prepared. Blueprints for a new council charter. Economic transition plans. Dreth resettlement proposals. Even a draft schedule for the return of the captured fleet crews, organized by ship class and home system. They had written the entire transition already. Every detail. Every contingency. Of course they had. He exhaled, long and slow, and pressed the calm stud on his wrist. Call an emergency session, he said. Full chamber. All member states. He paused. And find me everything we have on human history. All of it. He looked at the data blooming across his screen. I think we've been severely underestimating how long they've been paying attention. The line clicked closed. Outside the viewport, the stars hung in permanent, indifferent silence. Somewhere out there, orbiting a small yellow sun, a blue-green world went about its business, building, reading, watching, waiting. As it always had been. As the galaxy was only now beginning to understand, it always would be. They had called humanity primitive. They had called them manageable. They had forgotten the oldest rule in the galaxy. Never mistake patience for weakness.